I'm delighted to be here this afternoon to share with you some of the latest insights from our latest Women Matter research series. Just to briefly introduce myself, so I've been working at McKinsey since 2010, and ever since I joined, I've had the opportunity to participate in our Women Matter research. And it's been a great experience for me, and I'm absolutely passionate about the topic, and I'm really thrilled to be here today. Women Matter is a series of research that McKinsey has been conducting since 2006 on the contribution of women in corporations and how we can bring more women in at the top of companies. Now you might ask yourself, why did McKinsey get interested in the topic in the first place? Well, initially, it was actually for very selfish reasons. Half of the talent pool is constituted with women, so it was absolutely fundamental for us to understand how we could recruit, retain, and develop women. And that is why, about 15 years ago, we launched the initiative internally at a global level, and it has brought great results ever since. For instance, there are now 12 women partners in the Paris office, and they represent 25% of the partner group. Since we started this journey, we have participated in a number of forums and debates, conferences, and there was one question which always appeared very important. Does it matter? Does it really matter to have more women at the top of corporations? Does it impact their performance? Does it impact their competitiveness? That is why we decided to analyze this topic in a fact-based approach with no preconceived ideas. And that's how our Women Matter research started. When we started working on this, there was no obvious answer. Just to give you an anecdote about that, when Sandrine de Villa, who launched the initiative, went to our managing director at the time and told him about the fact that she wanted to launch this research, he was very positive about it. It's a great topic, you should definitely go for it. But then he also said, my goodness, what are we going to do if we find out that there is actually a negative impact? The good news is, however, that our Women Matter research has shown that there is a positive correlation between the presence of women in executive committees and the organizational and financial performance of corporations. How did we do that? Well, we surveyed about 300 companies worldwide in about 10 countries, and we looked at their performance, organizational and financial, depending on whether or not they had more than 3 women in their executive committees. First, let's take a look at organizational performance. We used a survey of about 100 questions, organized around 9 axes. Among those axes, you will find elements that typically represent organizational performance. So you have a leadership team, you have capabilities, innovation, etc., etc. When we looked at this on each of these axes, what we found out is that companies with more women in their executive committees perform better. Similarly, on financial performance, companies with more than 3 women in their executive committees perform better. It's 50% better on their return on equity and 55% better on their EBIT margin. This shows that there is a positive correlation between the presence of women in executive committees and the performance, both organizational and financial, of corporation. Now, correlation does not mean causality. That's when we started thinking, why? What could explain that link? And we believe that part of the answer lies in the diversity of leadership styles. Let's have a look at this. What we did is look at the leadership styles that both men and women apply. What you see here is a list of 9 of those leadership styles. They are all positive. We are not saying that some of them are more effective than others. All of them are positive leadership behaviors. What we found out is that women tend to apply more frequently 5 of those leadership behaviors than men, while men tend to apply more 2 of them. That doesn't mean that men do not apply the first 5. It just means that women tend to apply it more frequently, assuming, of course, that there is a critical mass of women at the top of corporations. We also asked top executives what they believe their next business challenges would be in the years to come. And we asked them what kind of leadership behaviors they thought would be necessary to effectively manage those challenges. And we did not tell them at the time which ones were more applied by women or by men. And what we found out is that apart from the first one, which is equally applied by men and women, the 5 next behaviors most needed in difficult times, in challenging times, are those more frequently applied by women. So ultimately, what we're saying is that it's not so much a call for gender diversity as it is a call for diversity of leadership styles. However, change is not really happening. Let's have a look at where we are today. 7 years after our first Women Matter research, women are still underrepresented at the top of corporations. It is true at board level, but it is even more striking at executive committee level, where even best-in-class countries such as Sweden barely reach 20% of women in executive committees. And it's not only a problem that you find at the top. Women get actually increasingly outnumbered as they rise through the ranks. We're not so much talking about a glass ceiling than a leaky pipeline all along the way. And even for those lucky women who sit on executive committees, it's 5 times more difficult for them to make it to CEO than it is for their male colleagues. Let me highlight at this point that we performed this analysis in all continents and all industries, and the results were always the same. So what we're saying here is that there is a big waste of talent in all continents, all industries, throughout the organization. What do companies do about this, if they do anything at all? Well, paradoxically, what we found out is that companies are actually implementing a lot of actions to promote gender diversity. What you see on this chart is the representing of the 200 or so companies that we surveyed, depending on the number of measures that they have put in place to promote gender diversity and the percentage of women in their executive committees. 82% of companies, it's the right-hand side, put in place more than 10 measures to promote gender diversity. However, 66% of companies do not yet see the result of their efforts. How could that be? Well, we believe there are 3 reasons. The first one is that maybe those measures need to be better implemented and executed. The second one is that we're talking about a change program, so it takes time. And the third one, we believe it's all about mindsets and culture. So if we say it's about mindsets and culture, how can we really make change happen? We believe at McKinsey that a full ecosystem of measures need to be put in place. And this ecosystem needs to address the mindsets and cultural change. Now, let's have a look at a couple of elements on mindsets. We often hear that women are less ambitious than men. But what we actually found out when surveying mid-level and top-level managers, both men and women, is that 80% of men and 80% of women claim that they want to reach a C-level position in their career. However, women are less confident in their chances of success, and that is true both at mid-level management and at top-level management. So what drives this gap, and how can we make change happen? Well, what we found out here is that corporations have a key role to play in addressing the mindset gap. How did we establish that? We looked at women who have ambition. And we looked separately at the two groups, those who believe in their chances of success and those who don't. And we compared the answers of the two groups on both collective and individual factors. And what we found is that the difference in their answers is twice as important on collective factors than it is on individual ones. This suggests that to make a difference, corporate culture does matter. What this also shows is that ambition is nothing if it is not supported by the right environment. Now, what can we do to improve that environment? We believe that there are two elements that come into play. And the first one is men. What exactly did we find out about men? Well, we saw that 28% of men, almost 1/3 of men, are not aware of the specific difficulties that women face when reaching the top. That's the first thing. The second element is that the prevailing leadership styles may also be a barrier to women advancement, as 40% of women believe that their personal leadership style does not fit that prevailing in their company. So how do we get corporate culture to really move the needle? As I said earlier, a full ecosystem is needed to make change happen. There are 3 building blocks in that ecosystem. The first one is senior management engagement. Gender diversity, as any business challenge, needs to be put at the top of the CEO agenda. The second element is women-specific initiatives, such as training, coaching, mentoring, or networking. And the third element is that collective enablers should be put in place in order to create a favorable environment for the development of diverse types of leadership. And to go a bit further, this ecosystem can be reinforced with 3 elements. First, we need to raise men's engagement and awareness. Men need to be aware of the case. They also need to support and adhere to the change. They need to support various leadership styles within their teams. Second, beyond mentors, we believe that women actually need sponsors. Sponsors who will open doors for them, who will advocate for them, who will proactively put them on their succession list. And for that too, men are critical. And thirdly, we need to gender neutralize the prevailing leadership and performance models in corporations. What does that mean exactly? Well, first, we need to ensure that evaluation criteria value a wide range of leadership styles. We also need to neutralize the anytime, anywhere performance model. We also should neutralize the flexibility and the effects of maternity on advancement. How could you do that? Well, for instance, part-time and leave of absence should not be women-specific initiatives. So in the end, what we believe is that whatever initiative can be good for women will create value for corporations as well as for men. Thank you very much.